And it is what it is. You're dying. That's true. It is what it is. They had a very bad original concept. It was carried out poorly, and the cover-up was one of the worst in the history of cover-ups. Well, you have to understand, the first time I ever heard of Black Lives Matter, they were chanting, "Pigs in a blanket," talking about police. Pigs, talking about our police. Pigs in a blanket, fry them like bacon. You're dying. That's true. And it is what it is. And where it should have stopped is at the deal standpoint, when they thought about it. Bad deal should have never been thought of. Bad deal should have never been thought of. And where it should have stopped is at the deal standpoint, when they thought about it.
The battle of righteousness versus Satan. There's Satan. Because these leftists are evil.
Isn't it wonderful to allow protest?
Retweet. That was an opinion of somebody. Retweet. That was an opinion of somebody.
And by the way, I don't think that's some grand conspiracy. I think this is sort of what power is. I mean this at a sort of high level. And by the way, I don't think that's some grand conspiracy. I think this is sort of what power is. I mean this at a sort of high level.
All of a sudden, we can't talk about Neanderthal DNA anymore.
Bottom line, the American dream, the great American dream versus being a socialist hellhole.
Running against the worst candidate in the history of presidential politics puts pressure on me. Can you imagine if I lose my whole life? What am I going to do? I'm going to say, I lost to the worst candidate in the history of politics. I'm not going to feel so good. Maybe I'll have to leave the country. I don't know. No good. Really bad for you. No good. No good. And where it should have stopped is at the deal standpoint, when they thought about it.
I'm about to be 34 and I have no family. Because my dad had 2 kids by the time he was 27.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man. You know what the problem is, though?
And by the way, I don't think that's some grand conspiracy. I think this is sort of what power is. I mean this at a sort of high level.
Isn't it wonderful to allow protest?
The truth of the matter is that when you look at some of my policies, in a lot of ways, Richard Nixon was more liberal than I was.
And he's like this, and we will, I need water, help me, I need water, help. And this is on live television. As far as my relationships with all people, I think I have great relationships with all people. I am the least racist person in this room.
Hello, users, and welcome to another episodic installation of Above It All, the greatest. And there is no need for a citation. They're podcasts in the history of podcasts. And live streams, whatever. I don't know. Hey, this is for November 21st. It is currently 10:01 a.m. Eastern Time. So and I'm not talking about Eastern Europe. For those in the chat room, hello Bodan, by the way. I'm not talking about that Eastern Time. I'm talking about Eastern American Time, because this is an American show. I'm an American. God bless the United States. Anyway, so hello users. Yo Soy Danny is now the reigning champion for the first in the live stream chat. Reminder, if you get first 3 days in a row, you win. I don't know what you win. I haven't figured that out yet. It's probably not even going to happen. So my feeling is that when someone shows up first in the chat 3 days in a row, then I'll worry about what they win. But so far I've been saying this for like a week, and every day someone else differently shows up first. So you got to be on top of that if you want to win. Again, I don't know what you're going to win, but you'll win something. You'll win something. So hello Yo Soy Danny, Wit Shunt, hello Bob, hello Bodan, hello Cloud, hello no username with a white profile picture, hello Jeff Hero, hello Cloud, and hello, of course, Mr. Freak Glitcher. How about Eastern Scotchland? I'm afraid this is Eastern American, unfortunately. Hello Kawaii-chan. Hello Fermi's Teapot. Why am I live so early? It's not early, it's 10. It's almost like afternoon, like 10 o'clock is not early. But if you want to know why I stream at this time, I stream at this time so if there is news that is like breaking in the morning, I'm able to read it, I'm able to digest it, and I'm able to do a live show. And then the live show is usually over at around 11, and then I can clip it and have like the YouTube clips go up by like 12. So my idea is if something is going to be like a trending story, the sooner I do the live stream, the sooner I get the clip editing done, and the sooner it's on YouTube with those epic titles that draw in new people. That's why I stream at 10 a.m. every day. And also, it keeps me up in the morning. I like to be a morning person, but I have sleeping problems. Last night, I got probably the best night's sleep in my entire life. But normally, I have problems getting up in the morning. So doing this at 10 helps me get up. And so yeah, I think getting up in the morning is very healthy, if that is a capability for you. And if that's something like an option on the table, I think you should try to get up as early as possible. In honor of Biden's win, hot scoop. A worker took a prescription drug overdose at her desk after Priti Patel screamed at her, "Get out of my face," according to legal letters. Who is that? Priti Patel? Never heard of that person. Don't know who that is. Did Dusty the Dullard show up? I said yesterday I wasn't feeling it. So if they show up today, I'm down. We'll see. They haven't showed up yet, so I don't know. Hello, Dynamic Gorgon 39. Welcome to the broadcast. Anyway, so I've got a show. Yeah, I know, like, believe it or not, like, I actually have tabs open. I've got this whole thing going on, right? Like, you might be thinking, what the hell? What the hell? Am I watching this? Like, this is just some bitch, right, drinking soy on webcam. Where's the stories? Where are the news? And I'm afraid you've been sorely mistaken. But so I want to talk about Joe Biden today, but I'm not sure if I should talk about Joe Biden now or if I should save that for the end of the. I should save that for the last story. I think I'm going to save that for the last story. That way we can get as many people as possible here, and then I can unload on Joseph Robinette Biden too. The current UK Secretary of State, who is a fan of the death penalty. Well, that's clear given the worker treatment here. They are in fact a fan of the death penalty. There you go. All the news I need is hot streamer girl drinks soy on cam. That's going to be tomorrow's title if I remember it. Drink soy on cam. That's so good. But yeah, so let's open up. This is fun. Let's open up today's show by talking about a Mr. Samuel Harris. You may notice I have one of Sam's most famous misquotes. Of course, I took this quote out of context here.
All of a sudden, we can't talk about Neanderthal DNA anymore.
Obviously, I took that out of context. I'm so sorry, Mr. Sam Harris. But again, Sam Harris is a guy that I really should pay attention to more personally just because I read all of his books when I was a teenager. Sam Harris, right? For those of you that don't know, Sam Harris was kind of like this weird kind of like grifter from the new atheist kind of thing that was happening in the early 2000s, right? You've got you know, people like Richard Dawkins, right? You got people like Christopher Hitchens, these like, you know, brilliant scientific philosophical minds. And then you got Sam Harris, who's like just some goofball that kind of just like hitched his wagon to that. And then like Chris Hitchens died, and like Richard Dawkins, you know, like no one cares about him anymore. I don't know what's going on with Daniel Dennett either. But Sam Harris kind of rebranded himself a couple years ago into this whole thing, the intellectual dark web, which was a project of like people that like claimed to be counterculture, except they were famous, they had books, they were on TV every day, but they kept claiming that they were censored, right? And every time they claimed that they were censored, Jordan Peterson, Ben Shapiro, Dave Rubin, Sam Harris, every time that they claimed that they were censored, they would get more and more followers. So it was kind of like one of those weird, kind of like, their grift was, everyone hates me and no one talks to me, yet they are getting millions of dollars on Patreon, and their podcasts get millions of listens. So it was like a really bizarre grift. And then when Donald Trump was elected, that was kind of like, it was like, you know, Trump is there, he won, and Sam Harris kind of positioned himself as like the left voice of the intellectual dark web. So whenever they do these like group podcasts, he would say like, oh, Trump is bad, right? And then you'd have Dave Rubin that would be like, you know, well, Trump's not that bad. And then Ben Shapiro would be like, I love Donald Trump, he's great. You know, it's kind of dumb, but he's awesome. And so now that Joe Biden has won, you see the likes of Ben Shapiro, who, like, you know, are just, you know, they're very upset. They hate Biden. They think Biden's a rabid communist. You see Dave Rubin, who, even though he's gay, is, like, buckling on the issues of, oh, should gay marriage be legal? Well, it should be up to the states, Dave Rubin says, right? Even though he is, in fact, gay himself. But, you see all these people that Sam Harris hitched his wagon to just acting like total goofballs. And so with that introduction, here's Sam Harris officially resigning. He is reading his open letter of resignation from the intellectual dark web. Let's listen.
Insofar as I've noticed what others in the so-called intellectual dark web have been saying, it's generally not something I want to be associated with. I don't want to single anyone out in particular.
I might, that's like really, I'm just going to listen to that again. That's a really good, like, sound drop potential. Is generally something I don't want to be associated with. That is so good. It's so good.
Insofar as I've noticed,
but it gets better.
What others in the so-called intellectual dark web have been saying, it's generally not something I want to be associated with. I don't want to single anyone out in particular, but allow me to take this moment to turn in my imaginary membership card to this imaginary organization.
So again, what he's doing right here is he's trying to distance himself. I get it, right? When you have Dave Rubin, an openly married gay person, going out there and saying that gay marriage should be left up to the states and that Trump is the real winner and that Joe Biden is going to try to eat your babies, right? You don't want to be a part of that. Like when you have Ben Shapiro going up there, like saying that like there's no such thing as a wet ass pussy, and that if someone has a wet ass pussy, that it must be a medical condition, right? Publicly humiliating himself on a daily basis. You don't want to be a part of that. When you see the Weinsteins, all right, doing this like unity thing, where like, oh yeah, we're gonna draft Tulsi Gabbard for president, right? You don't want to be associated with that. Why? Because it's cringe. It's cringe. So this is the thing. Is there's a balancing act here, and I'm going to play the rest of this in a second, but there's a balancing act here, right? Yes, it's good when people realize the mistakes that they've made and try to move on from those mistakes. That is good, and that should be encouraged. Is Sam Harris going to be like a communist on Twitter all of a sudden? I don't think so, but it's a good idea for him to distance himself. That is a net positive. And the reasons that he has, and he's about to go into, are pretty funny. But the thing is, you have to understand, this guy was one of the sole reasons, like, in the same instances of, like, the new atheist, like, Four Horsemen cringe from the early 2000s, right? Sam Harris kind of hitched his wagon to more qualified people. And this is one of those situations where he gained those qualifications, and then you have the likes of Dave Rubin try to hitch his wagon to Sam Harris in a way that it's like, oh, now people are trying to ride on my coattails. And that's the thing you need to realize here, is that this is all self-preservation. He wants to retain his own, like, credibility. Now that Joe Biden's going to be president, he doesn't want anything to do with this cringe project that has given him Patreon dollars over the last couple years.
I mean, the IDW was always tongue-in-cheek, from my point of view. It was a funny name for a group of people who are willing to discuss difficult topics in public. Mostly
A bunch of like white men that are willing to discuss difficult topics such as transgender rights. Yeah. That's I mean, again, counterculture stuff.
public, mostly on podcasts. But it never made sense for us to be grouped together as though we shared a common worldview. I never saw much downside to it, and I didn't much think about it. But in the aftermath of this election, with some members of this fictional group sounding fairly bonkers, I just want to make it clear that I'm not part
And of course, what he's talking about is Dave Rubin.
And by the way, I don't think that's some grand conspiracy. I think this is sort of what power is. I mean this at a sort of high level.
Right, he's talking about Dave Rubin, who is, in fact, bonkers, and that's correct. But again, one of the things here that Sam Harris is doing is he's trying to downplay, his involvement. Oh, it's imaginary, it's fictitious. You know, it's not like we did thousands of podcasts together. No. It's not like we had New York Times profiles about us. No, by the way, we have the New York Times giving us profiles, yet we're censored and no one will talk to us. It's weird, right? Why doesn't the New York Times give me a profile? That's a free speech issue. Anytime a mainstream outlet doesn't run a story about me, I'm being censored. It's a free speech issue. I just want to note that I used to listen to Sam Harris's podcast like 5 years ago, back when it was called Waking Up. You know, like, his podcast started as, like, some weird, like, meditation-focused, like, kind of self-help thing. And, 5 years ago, I was into that shit. And then, like, a couple years ago, he changed the title from Waking Up to Making Sense. And that was, like, the IDW grift. So I just want to throw that out there. It's really funny. But again, it is good that Sam Harris is trying to distance himself from these people because they are bonkers, as he says. But you have to understand, it doesn't mean all of a sudden that you can absolve him of all the trafficking of cringe that he's done. Sam Harris going on Dave Rubin's show 3 years ago, is one of the main reasons why Dave Rubin is in the place that he is. Dave Rubin hitched himself to Sam Harris's wagon, and at this point, Sam Harris feels like a Dr. Frankenstein kind of responsibility here.
sounding fairly bonkers. I just want to make it clear that I'm not part of any group, right? So if you want to criticize my ideas, that's great. But I only represent myself here, and no one else speaks for me.
So again, there is Sam Harris officially exiting the intellectual expedition known as the intellectual dark web, which again, it's fictitious. The IDW is nothing more than a thought experiment, and it is no longer a thought experiment because it's over apparently. So I thought that was really, really funny. I thought, like, again, really funny stuff. And as someone who actually fell for the Sam Harris thing when I was a teenager, I feel like I have a responsibility to explain to my audience that this guy is no good. He's no good. So there you go. Sam Harris officially exiting from the fictitious group that does not exist, but he's exiting it nonetheless. Hello, Kazman. Hello, Dusty. Welcome. Hello, I am Sudan. Hello, Nicholas. I believe you gave me money on Patreon, Nicholas. I appreciate that. If I remember correctly, I got that email, so thank you for that. Hello, Mr. Cool Lice. Welcome to the live stream. I don't know if I said hello to Mr. Cool Lice. But, yeah, he sounds so sad in this clip. Sam Harris's, style is, he is as monotonous as it gets. He always sounds like that. Like, look at this clip here.
Organization. I mean, the IDW was...
Right, listen to the way he speaks, and then listen to this, 4-year-old clip.
All of a sudden, we can't talk about Neanderthal DNA anymore.
He literally sounds exactly the same. And maybe, I don't know, when you get to the age of, 40, you don't, if you have no emotions. Reminder, Sam Harris's grift is that he has no emotions. His grift is that free will does not exist. All human beings are chemical reactions. And, that's probably true. But at the same time, this guy's whole thing is that, there is, it's just fact. There's just objective reality, and he's just there calling balls and strikes. So he doesn't need to have emotions. He doesn't need to buckle up. He doesn't need to do anything. I got a pillow here. If you want to laugh, check out Sam Harris versus David Benatar on antinatalism. Mr. Harris gets smoked. Shapiro and Rubin are pretenders, but E. Weinstein is the real deal. Uh-oh. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm not buying E. Weinstein is the real... I'm sorry. No. If you want to show me how, like, I'm willing to listen to anything that you've got. Yes. Sam Harris is a self-admitted NPC. That's correct. I've actually got his books in one of my little bins here. He's got a book called The Moral Landscape, which I love that shit. When I was a teenager, when I was like 16, 17, right, I was sitting in my math class reading The Moral Landscape by Sam Harris. I thought I was hot shit. I thought I was like, damn, bitch, look at me, I'm reading The Moral Landscape, like, I'm so cool. And so yes, he is a self-admitted NPC. That's absolutely correct. That is, without a doubt, an accurate summary of this motherfucker. Yes, that's correct. Hopefully y'all are appreciating this program so far. Hello, Michael DeHart. We're getting a lot of new viewers in here, so hello, new people. If you don't know me, I would love to introduce myself if anyone has questions for me. This is a live stream. In between the little segments, I like to respond to the chat. So if you have any questions or concerns, feel free to let me know. Don't hate on Rubin. He is one of the first openly gay conservative personalities. It's progress. That is true. That is factual. Gays against gay marriage. I mean, someone's got to do it, right? All of a sudden, like, you're going to see me in a couple years as, the resurgence of the IDW. I'm going to be the trans person against transitioning. That's going to be my little grift in a couple years from now. Make a couple million, and then go back to what I was doing beforehand. I wonder, though. I genuinely wonder. And I do think I have the resume for this. But I wonder how successful I could be if I just spent, like, a full year, or, like, maybe 2 years, right? Just pretending to be a right-winger. Like, I could, like, again, I've got the resume for it. Like, I totally have the resume for this. And that's why I'm definitely considering it. Because I would just get a fuckload of money, and then I can just have money, and then I can go back to what I was doing, right? Like, you see Jordan Peterson making millions and millions of dollars. So that guy was nobody, and then he went to making millions of dollars in like 6 months. I feel like I've got the potential for that. That is just a matter of integrity. Hello, Unknown Story. Hello, Binks. Illy! Thank you, Binks. Illy as well. Hello, A234. Thank you for the $5 super chat. Have I ever done psychedelics? If you count heavy doses of marijuana, then yes. If not, then no. I do not have friends, and therefore doing psychedelics where it's illegal is not much of an option. But I'm interested, heavily interested. So I would love to do that at some point. Yes, without a doubt, Cloud. Any time that Michael Brooks would talk about Sam Harris, absolutely golden material right there. Without a doubt. Highly recommended. I'm aware that I can grow shrooms myself, but I am poor, do not have that money. I do not have a safe environment to avoid contamination. And that kind of stuff. Like, I don't really have anywhere in my house where I could set up a grow situation that would avoid contamination without a lot of work and a lot of money. And I would rather just, like, stream on YouTube, and then someone, like, comes into my stream one day and says, hey, I'll mail you. So, like, that's my preferred scenario. I'm just waiting. Just waiting. That's my preferred scenario. But, yeah, just throwing that out there. But if anyone wants to give me a tutorial, I mean, feel free. Anyway, let's move on. Thank you for the $5, though. I appreciate that. One thing is, at the end of this program, I'm going to provide an update, a 24-hour update to what I was talking about yesterday, about a potential fundraiser for a production quality overhaul. So I'm just throwing that out there. I've got a little bit more of a game plan for that, so I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. I'm growing regular mushrooms. It's harder than YouTube makes it look. See, that's my problem. Is like, I don't have the kind of money to like make a mistake and then I'm out $100. Like, that's not my financial situation. You know, if I did have that kind of financial situation, then that's fine. But I don't, so I won't. Speaking of financial situations, here we have John Delaney, and he's bringing it back. So if anyone remembered John Delaney, I don't fault you if you don't remember John Delaney. But if you do remember John Delaney, he is that guy who ran for president and was as funny as you could possibly be. He comes out here with actually a pretty decent idea. Now, again, John Delaney is a centrist. This guy is like, you know, he's addicted to health insurance money. He's addicted to pharmaceutical money. This guy's got some problems with addiction. But he actually gives us a relatively, now again, from a centrist perspective, this is a relatively decent idea. And I don't want to, like, obviously, there's, you know, like $2,000 a month is the bare minimum. We need $2,000 a month backdating to March. I think if we had a serious government that seriously wanted to help its people, right, with Biden coming in, give us $2,000 a month for every month since March. That's what we need, all at once. Maybe, you know, every week we get $2,000. So that would be an economic stimulus that would actually help this country. Now, that's not going to happen. But I thought that this was pretty funny that a centrist is coming out with, you know, a decent idea. Pay everyone $1,500 to get a vaccine. It is a stimulus check and a big vaccine incentive rolled into one. Result: more people get the vaccine, it saves lives, helps people financially, and the $400 billion pays for itself with economic boost from ending a pandemic. Now, again, not a bad idea, because the thing here that you have to see is that John Delaney is also, what he's saying is the vaccine should be free. Not only should it be free, but they should pay you. Which, that, in my opinion, is the bigger get here from a centrist pharmaceutical lobby, like, kind of like health insurance goon, right, is if the Trump administration were to have any sway over this, the vaccine would cost you hundreds or thousands of dollars, and it might not work, right? And then that's the kind of situation that the Trump administration wants to do. John Delaney says, you know what? Not only should it be free, but we should pay you. And I think that that's pretty decent, and that's a pretty decent marker for centrism. So I'm wanting to throw this out here so that if you see Joe Biden go up there and say something to the right of John Delaney, Joe Biden's going to go out there and move to the right of John Delaney. Like, come on. Come on. So this is where, like, a centrist brain is at. Yeah, it's a Band-Aid solution. Yeah, it's not the, you know, all that is factual, right? $2,000 a month stimulus backdating to March is what we need in this country, and that's like a bare minimum. That is like the absolute minimum scenario to avoid an absolute fallout and disaster from this depression. But the centrists are coming out with some decent takes, and I love to see it. So I just wanted to give a shout out to my man John Delaney, bringing it back, and he's doing a good job out there. So there you go. Hello, Ronnie M. Welcome to the broadcast. LMAO, Delaney isn't going to pass with the Christian right. This vaccine, but not the dozens of vaccines that weren't good, is Demark of the Devil. Yeah, the vaccines are, you know, there you go. You can induce psychedelic states with the right drums and breathing. A234, I have experience with lucid dreaming. Specifically, there is a plant called the blue lotus flower. There's also the blue lily flower. I mix them. The blue lotus flower has somewhat psychedelic properties, and it transfers to sleep. So what I've done is I've smoked and taken orally blue lotus flower, meditated and have gone to sleep, and I've had very interesting dreams. So if you want to count that as psychedelic experience, then I personally would do so. Very good stuff. Has made me a much mentally healthier person, for sure. That idea reaches every class. Not bad at all. No, exactly, for sure. I mean, like, that's the thing. From a centrist, it's not bad. It's not bad at all. I think it's a good idea. Just because there's no drama from forcing people to take it, it actually might be more effective. Exactly. Exactly. I need to try that. Sounds amazing. Absolutely. You can get blue lotus flower relatively cheaply online. You know, it's legal. Like, if you live in America, it's legal. I think blue lotus flower is illegal in Russia. I think that's one of the only countries where blue lotus flower is actually illegal. But it is legal in the United States. And it's pretty good. It's pretty good. It has a slight, like, conscious effect. Like, it's kind of like smoking, like, a full, like, you know, like one of these of Blue Lotus might make you, like, have a very small buzz. Like, if you were to take, like, maybe a hit of decent marijuana, you'd get, like, that kind of, like, really small buzz. Like, or at least for me, because, you know, I'm a freak. But, it's kind of like that, except it really has a lot of effects when you sleep. The sleeping effect is really good. If you want to try lucid dreaming and meditation with that kind of stuff, I would also recommend mugwort. I would also recommend Salea zakatichichi. And I would also recommend galantamine. Galantamine is an isolate from certain plants that you could buy in pill form. Salea zakatichichi and mugwort are herbs that you can grind up and smoke or put into capsules. I have a capsule maker, so I can just make them and then just take them before bed whenever I want to have a lucid dream experience. Highly recommended stuff. Haven't been doing that much lately because I've been smoking weed every day, and that kind of counteracts, but, you know, whatever. Plus, we can weed out all the hypocrites. Vaccines are the mark of the beast. Oh, so you don't get the COVID-19 vaccine? Poofed. Of course I did. Who would turn down 1,500? When you say the COVID-19 vaccine, surely you mean the Trump. Did you get your Trump? Unknown story. Did you get your Trump? I would love to get my Trump. I have not done DMT, though I would like to. That is something on my list of things I would like to do, for sure. Okay, so... next segment time, and this is this is going to be some deep dish cringe. So, yeah, not good, not good. So, let me, like, think of how I want to start this real quick and drink some more soy. Okay. All right. Okay, so Kyle Rittenhouse, who is on tape murdering 2 people and shooting a third, had his $2 million cash bond paid for, in part by the My Pillow guy and some other CEO stuff. And so I'm gonna bring this to attention first here. The teenage gunman charged with killing 2 Black Lives Matter protesters in Wisconsin this summer walked out of jail Friday afternoon after posting $2 million bail. Kyle Rittenhouse, 17, was released from custody around 2 p.m. and handed over to his own security detail after his attorneys posted bond on his behalf, according to the Kenosha County Sheriff's Department. Supporters have been donating money for his bail, and a lawyer Friday said cash from the former Silver Spoons and NYPD Blue actor Ricky Schroeder and My Pillow CEO Mike Lindell helped spring Rittenhouse. Kyle Rittenhouse is out of jail, attorney Linwood tweeted. God bless all who donate to help #FightBack. Raise required $2 million cash bail. Special thanks to actor Ricky Schroeder and Mike Lindell for putting us over the top. I guess he misspelled Schroeder's name there, which is really funny. Okay, so this is the thing. The My Pillow guy has been, you know, they floated his name for, like, the Trump administration at one point. That guy is, like, really deep in there. But you need to understand what, like, first of all, my entry-level analysis is what could $2 million do? $2 million is a decent amount of money, especially when we live in a depression where 40% of people cannot pay their rent. 40% of renters in the United States of America cannot pay their rent. So $2 million could go a long way. The right wing in this country is more interested in spending $2 million on releasing a murderer from jail temporarily than they are spending $2 million helping the working poor in this country, the essential workers who cannot pay their rent, who cannot feed their children. And that is something I really want to be explicit about this analysis. $2 million was wasted on springing a murderer, someone who is on tape murdering people. Why did he murder someone? Because someone threw a plastic bag at him. Right? It's ridiculous. So this fucking twerp. So I'm going to read this here also, this other article from NBC News. And this one I think is Kyle Rittenhouse says he used coronavirus stimulus check to buy AR-15 used in fatal shooting. No, I don't regret it, Rittenhouse told the Washington Post about buying the gun. This country is broken. It's broken. Now, you can make the argument capitalism is working just as intended, and I would agree with that analysis. But if you want to say that America, the American experiment, is based on the idea that we should always aspire to do more, if you want that to be your kind of notion of America, and I would like that to be my notion of America personally, it's hard to believe in that kind of fairy tale, but, always should push to help people. This country is broken. Kyle Rittenhouse cashed a coronavirus stimulus check to purchase the semi-automatic rifle that authorities say he used to fatally shoot 2 men in Kenosha, Wisconsin, he said. Now, one of the arguments that the right has been using to defend Kyle Rittenhouse is, it wasn't his gun, he didn't buy the gun, he didn't bring it across state lines, blah, blah, blah. That argument is, I'm sorry, that's gone. You're going to have to get a new grift. In a telephone interview with the Washington Post posted Thursday, the jailed Rittenhouse said he acted in self-defense and has no regrets for arming himself that fateful August night as protesters marched in the wake of Jacob Blake's shooting by police. This is something that is extremely important to understand. A 17-year-old kid is not fully mentally there, right? The brain doesn't stop growing until at least in the mid-20s, right? This guy has been programmed by an entire, culture that what he did is acceptable. Murdering 2 people, acceptable, right? The idea that you would question, why did I go there? Why did I illegally purchase this gun? That is not ever, why did I violate curfew? Those are not ever part of this equation, right? It's like, again, reviewing a film. What is your opinion on a random film? Oh, well, I watched the last 10 minutes of it, and, I think the movie is really good. It's amazing. Okay, but you didn't watch the full film. You're not analyzing the full scenario. You're judging, a situation by the last 10 minutes and none of the other decisions that led up until that point. And that's why it's such a crucial thing you need to understand here. Rittenhouse, 17, who had worked as a YMCA lifeguard, was arrested at his home in Antioch, Illinois, a day after the fatal shootings of Joseph Rosenbaum, 36, and Anthony Huber, 26, on August 25th. I got my $1,200 from the coronavirus Illinois unemployment because I was on furlough from YMCA, and I got my first unemployment check, so I was like, I'll use it to buy it, Rittenhouse said in his first jailhouse interview. Again, notice how gleeful this is. I illegally purchased my gun. I know I illegally purchased my gun. I do not regret illegally purchasing my gun and murdering people. No regrets. He wasn't old enough to purchase the weapon himself. Authorities allege that he had a friend in Kenosha buy the AR-15 and hold it for him in Wisconsin. This is premeditation. Okay? He purchased a weapon. He knew it was illegal to purchase the weapon. That is premeditation. Right? He had a friend of his illegally hold that weapon. So, now, again, one of the big arguments, he didn't cross state lines with the weapon. He didn't cross state lines. What? He bought the weapon. It was his weapon, right? He had it stored, right? And he was like, okay, tonight's the night. I'm ready to kill. So he went across, took out his gun, and just killed people. And that's what you need to understand here, right? There is no alternative reading of this. It's not self-defense, right? You don't go into a gunfight, right? And then, someone throws a plastic bag at you and you get to just go on a killing spree. That's not self-defense, right? Why were you there? The premeditation nullifies the self-defense, okay? It's like if I go in to rob a bank. All right, I'm robbing the bank. And then one of the managers comes out of the back room with a baseball bat. Or I guess comes out of the back room with a plastic fucking bag and just throws a plastic bag. You know when you throw a plastic bag and it like bounces back at you because like it's a plastic fucking bag? So imagine, right, I've got a gun, I'm robbing a bank, right, premeditated crime in progress already. Someone throws a plastic bag at me and I shoot and kill them? Is that self-defense? No, it's not. I was in a criminal situation where I had already violated several laws. That's not self-defense. And then someone throws a plastic bag at me? Okay, so Rittenhouse, who lived across the state line just 20 miles away, said he was out on the streets in Kenosha in southeast Wisconsin on August 25th to protect local businesses and render medical aid during protests. Pictures of Rittenhouse that night show him with his AR-15 slung over his shoulder and a medic's bag on his hip. Okay, I was going to a place where people had guns. Why? Maybe think about that, right? Why would I go to this place where people have guns? I don't know. And God forbid someone brought a gun to me and decided to shoot. Oh yeah, God forbid, right? And this is the thing. Law and order, for you, the black people have to follow law and order. The white teenagers that support the cops, fuck it. Law? Order? Yo, what if they had a gun? No, Kyle, again, introspection is not something that the right is capable of. They are NPCs. Kyle, you are that person. When you say that scenario, God forbid someone had a gun and decided to shoot me, you are that person. That is you. You are describing yourself. You know, one of those situations where people say when you have a gun in a situation that you're more likely to be in danger just by the sheer fact that you have a gun, right? If there's an active shooter and you are armed, you are more likely to participate in a situation with an active shooter. That is kind of the situation. You go to a gunfight with a gun, you are going to be more likely to use a gun. If you don't have a gun, you're not likely to use a gun. If you stay at home and play Xbox, you're not likely to go on a killing spree. These are all the things that you need to understand. This was premeditated. This person was programmed, and when I say programmed, again, they are a kid, they are a child. What they are programmed by is from mainstream media, the President of the United States and their parents programmed this kid to not have any introspective ability, to not think about their actions in any capacity, and to just view everyone else as the enemy at all costs. God forbid someone had a gun. God forbid you had a gun. Kyle Rittenhouse. Okay. I wanted to be protected, which I ended up having to protect myself. Be protected. Again, that's another word like liberty, freedom, right? These words that right-wingers use, that when you ask them to define them, it's like, what is freedom? Oh, the freedom to starve because you can't find a job in a depression? That's freedom, right? Okay. God forbid you needed to protect yourself. From what? From a plastic bag, is, I guess, what this guy needed to protect himself from. There is a reason why a lot of states say, again, he illegally purchased this gun. There is a reason why there are some sort of safeguards. You don't want kids who are barely developed, who are eating right-wing propaganda on a daily basis to have guns. You don't want these kids to be in these situations where they have a gun and they're like short-tempered and they're willing to shoot and kill other people. That's not a situation you want to be in. And that's why he knew that and he illegally purchased this gun. Did he illegally purchase the gun, like, so that he could protect himself at home? No. He wasn't protecting himself. He was premeditatingly going into an environment. He knew he was going to have that gun available to him, which he illegally purchased months prior. He knew what was going on, and then he discharged that weapon. Responsible gun ownership is knowing when using a weapon is irresponsible. That is part of responsible gun ownership. In order to be a responsible citizen that is armed, you need to know when and when not to use your weapon. Kyle Rittenhouse illegally purchased this weapon, already irresponsible, and does not know that distinction. But this is important. No, I don't regret it, he said. I would have died that night if I didn't. I feel like I had to protect myself. Again, the idea that this kid can say, I illegally purchased a gun, and that's fine, I don't regret it. I went to a protest in a town I don't live in, that's fine. I got my gun that I illegally purchased, right, from my friend who illegally held that gun, right? and then I shot and killed people. The idea, again, it's like reviewing a movie while only watching the last 10 minutes. Like, if you watch the last 10 minutes of a movie, you might not know who the main character is. You might not know all the context leading up to that. You might not know the crimes that one character that you thought was really awesome. Yo, that guy was really cool in the gunfight at the end of this Western film. But if you watch, like, the first hour and 20 minutes, you'll see, oh, that guy was actually the villain. But I only watched the last 10 minutes, right? That's one of those situations. But this is, like, another thing. Now, I want to say this, and I want to stipulate this, because one of the right-wing conspiracy theories is, oh, Kyle Rittenhouse murdered a pedophile, and therefore it's okay that he illegally purchased a weapon, because he murdered a pedophile. Now, that may or may not be true, right? But law and order, again, law and order only applies to everyone that I disagree with. So Kyle Rittenhouse is allowed to illegally purchase a gun. Law and order, right? He was protecting himself. He is allowed to illegally violate curfew. Law and order, what? Law and order. He is allowed to shoot and kill people, right? Oh, but that person was a pedophile, so it's okay. Okay, so here's the thing. Rosenbaum, to my understanding, went to prison. He did his time, and he left prison. Law and order, right? That is law and order. You go to prison, you do the time for the crime, you get out of prison. Law and order. That's not good enough for these people. They say it's okay that he was murdered by Kyle Rittenhouse because of his crimes in the past. But these are the same people that advocate for law and order. Now, is me saying Kyle Rittenhouse shooting a pedophile, if an alleged pedophile, or a convicted, I don't know the situation, I haven't researched it fully, is that a bad thing necessarily? Is it better that this guy's not on the street? Maybe. But you can't prove a counterfactual. What I do know is that Kyle Rittenhouse should not have been there. He should not have had that gun, and that whole situation should not have happened. What I do know is that this person was convicted, did time, and is released. Okay? Those are facts. Those are verifiable. Now, can we say that, oh, Rosenbaum might have attacked another child 60 years from now, right? Like, in Kyle prevent... Maybe, but you can't prove a counterfactual. That's not something that you can do. So, Rosenbaum, one of the victims, had long struggled with mental illness and suicide attempts, and he had been just released from a hospital earlier in the day. His fiancée, Karen Swart, told the Post. Swart said they spent hours at a motel where she lived and cleaned rooms, but because of a previous arrest on a domestic violence charge, Rosenbaum left the motel that night fearing he could be arrested for breaking an order of protection, she told the newspaper. She urged him to steer clear of downtown Kenosha, but he somehow ended up in the middle of the protest. Video taken by bystanders appears to show Rosenbaum running at Rittenhouse and throwing a plastic bag at him. Moments before shots ring out and Rosenbaum crumples. Crumples? What the fuck kind of language is that? To the pavement. Crumples? Crumples? What? Crumples? Are you kidding? Okay. Swart said the bag was filled with belongings Rosenbaum had with him at the hospital. She rejected Rittenhouse's self-defense claim. I don't think there's any sort of self-defense when there's an unarmed person in front of you and you're holding an assault rifle 2 feet away. Kenosha County District Attorney Michael Gravelli couldn't be immediately reached for comment Thursday. Again, a plastic bag is not a weapon. Now again, in this bank robbery scenario, I'm robbing a bank, I've got my bag out, like the person's putting the money in, and someone runs at me and throws like a pencil at me. Oh, I can kill them in self-defense now. Like, a pencil is more of a weapon than a plastic bag, just FYI. But, like, this argument is, oh, I can violate any crime under the book, and at the end of the movie, right, again, it's like you're watching a movie, right, oh, why is this person at the bank, why do they have a mask on, I don't know, but someone just threw a pencil at them and they shot and killed them, self-defense. You are not analyzing the full situation. And that is what you need to understand. If you say law and order, you cannot defend Kyle Rittenhouse. The Venn diagram of law and order and defending a criminal, those are two separate circles. But somehow, the Trump brain is able to make them one circle. You can somehow these people simultaneously say law and order is something that needs to be followed. Law and order, law and order, law and order, law and order, law and order. But when a teenager violates several laws and ends up killing people, oh, self-defense. Yeah, I mean, he illegally bought the gun. He illegally violated curfew. You know, he didn't know how to use the gun. He had no gun training. I mean, that's whatever. But, the guy he shot was sent to prison before, so did this time and got released. Law and order, I guess, right? Again, this is one of those situations. Actually, there's one more thing I wanted to show here. Look at this fucking little pic here. Look at this guy. This, like, there is the Black Rifle Coffee Company is sponsoring a murderer. Someone who is is on video murdering people with an illegally purchased firearm. Oh yeah! Sponsorship. Right, and these are the guys, of course, that run the Black Rifle Coffee Company. Black Rifle Coffee Company is quite literally the combination of my two favorite passions. I take pride in the coffee we roast, the veterans we employ, and the causes we support. Look at this fucking guy. Black Rifle Coffee Company. Ridiculous. It's ridiculous. This is a cut and dry case. If you defend Kyle Rittenhouse, you cannot defend Law and Order. You have to pick one. Do you want Law and Order, or do you want vigilante justice? Now, again, if you want vigilante justice, that's at least a consistent thing. I only want people that I agree with doing the murdering. That's all I want, right? Now, again, let's look at an analogous situation. Michael Ryanel, the guy who shot and killed someone at a protest in Portland, I think a week after the Kenosha incident. What happened with that guy? Remind me. Oh, right. He was executed, shot 40 times by federal police. Isn't that interesting? Kyle Rittenhouse, a right-wing folk hero for killing 2 protesters. Michael Ryanel, self-defense, allegedly. Again, we couldn't process these claims because there wasn't a court case. Not only shot and killed by federal police, executed 40 times. Shot 40 times? He was unarmed. He may have had a gun on him, but he was shot and killed before he even knew that there was anyone around them. This is the difference in how even someone remotely connected to having a single left-wing belief is treated versus a 17-year-old violating multiple laws and murdering people. This is how the right treats these people differently. Law and order, they say. Yeah, we can violate the Constitution to assassinate American citizens. Law and order, what? Law? Order? No. They disagree with me. So law and order doesn't apply to them, I guess. 80 million people voted for Joe Biden, right? They claim the election was stolen. Should law and order not apply to Joe Biden voters? That's what a lot of Republicans are saying. A lot of Proud Boys are out there saying that we should kill Joe Biden. What? What about law and order? Right. Law and order is a convenient excuse when it comes to, I don't know, rioters and looters. Gotta get that law and order. But when it comes to a 17-year-old roaming the streets with an illegally purchased firearm, killing someone because of a plastic bag, all of a sudden, all responsibility thrown out the window. Being a responsible gun owner requires knowing when to shoot, knowing how to shoot, and knowing what to do with that gun. If you see someone running at you with a plastic bag, do you kill them? Or do you, I don't know, maybe shoot them in the leg? Pull a card out of Joe Biden's playbook? A 17-year-old cannot properly make these decisions. Again, this is why we have some of these laws. This is why Kyle Rittenhouse admitted to illegally purchasing this firearm, because he knew he was not supposed to have it. That is premeditation for a crime. When you don't know how to use a gun, when you are incapable of using a gun, and yet you are using a gun and people end up dead, it doesn't matter if it's self-defense or if whatever, protecting whatever. Doesn't matter. You shouldn't have been in that situation. Oh, but they came at me with a plastic bag. I feared for my life. They had a plastic bag. Who knows? Could have been anything. It's ridiculous. And yet these people are going to seriously claim, right? You're going to have the same people saying Kyle Rittenhouse is an American hero. The same people are going to go to another video of mine and say law and order. Why are the black people out past curfew? Why was the white teenager out past curfew? Oh, doesn't matter. The black person shouldn't be out, but the white kid, that's fine. They can be out past curfew. Why? Well, because they agree with me. And at the end of the day, it isn't about law and order. It's not about equal treatment under the Constitution. It's about, if you disagree with me, fuck it. It doesn't matter anymore. If someone even has a remotely left-leaning persuasion, they're assassinated, shot 40 times in the back by federal police. If someone has a right-wing point of view, they're turned into a mythologized folk hero. Think about that. This is the country we live in. This is going to be the next few years. This is going to be the next decade. This is going to be the next era of all of our collective lifetimes. How do we deal with people that say law and order, but also say that anyone I agree with is immune to law and order? How do we deprogram them? How do we, say, hey, that's not a thing. You can't do that. That's like saying red is my favorite color, but so is green. They're both my favorite color. Well, you can like them both equally, but if you have a favorite color, you need to pick one, right? You can't say that red is my favorite color one day, and I guess you could, but my point is, there can only be one favorite. You can only have one core principle. Either it's law and order, or it's anyone I agree with is immune to anything. You got to pick one. You got to pick one. That's just the world we live in. It's ridiculous. These people are animals. If you support Kyle Rittenhouse, you need to do some serious introspection in your life, because you're just evil. Like there is no middle ground. Oh, well, I didn't have all the facts. Get the facts. Before you start celebrating a murderer, get the facts. Oh, well, it's just, the black people were rioting and looting, and I'm sorry, you're just a racist piece of shit. I'm sorry. If you support the federal assassination of Michael Reinl, but don't support doing the same thing to Kyle Rittenhouse, you are not a morally consistent person. You are just an opportunist, and all you care about is whether or not the people I disagree with can be shot and murdered. Who cares about the Constitution? If people I agree with have any problems in their lives whatsoever, well, I'm going to talk about it on social media all day. Again, I know I'm repeating myself, but I need to drive this point home. There are millions of people out there that think the federal execution of Michael Reinl is justified and that Kyle Rittenhouse acted in self-defense. There are people that believe those two things simultaneously. The people that believe the sky is blue and the people that believe the sky is green. What if they both were the same person? That's the world that we're living in? How do we deal with that? How do we deprogram these people? I don't know. I have no fucking idea. Clearly, doing these videos, doing these reports, doing these news stories, getting testimony from the kid himself, clearly that's not doing anything. How do we deprogram people from wanting to go out in the streets and murder black people or anyone that they perceive as disagreeing with them? Oh, someone's out past curfew? Well, I'm out past curfew, but I've got a gun and they've got a plastic bag. Let's shoot and kill? I'm sorry. There is no defense. Ridiculous stuff. So yeah, I didn't read the chat during any of that. When I do my little monologues, I don't like reading the chat because it's distracting. So I'm going to scroll up and get some messages that I missed. You got some thigh-high socks with your stimulus. Hell yes, Binks. That's amazing. Very good stuff. Again, it's law and order. If it's that black kid, that 12-year-old black kid playing in a playground, throw the book at him. Not even throw the book at him. Let's just execute that 12-year-old black kid. Law and order. Fuck it. No such thing. When it's a 17-year-old white kid roaming the streets with an illegally purchased firearm, all of a sudden law and order doesn't matter. It's ridiculous. What's poppin', Salvi raised weirdo? How's it going? Hello, Bongo Dave. What's poppin'? Mass 78, pie versus the cake is the only debate that matters. I can agree with that, with cake being the obvious victor, unless you count pizza as a pie, in which case pizza is the winner. But there's a debate on that as well. Is pizza a pie? Technically. I'm sorry, all of y'all, Dr. Sleven, I don't know you that much. You seem like a nice person. I'm sorry, but fuck off with this bullshit. I'm sorry. I know that George Washington is just a criminal, like, who wants to murder people themselves. I get it. I'm not going to bother reading their messages. Dr. Sleven IRL, I don't know you that much. Like, come on. Come on, dude. Like, this whole idea of oh, well, you didn't technically illegally purchase it. Someone else illegally purchased it. He had the gun. He gave someone money. That person broke the law on their behalf. They are an accomplice to murder. They're linked. They're inextricably linked. You can't separate those two. Now, you can make a technical variation, but it doesn't matter. Okay, it doesn't matter. Kyle Rittenhouse purchased the gun illegally when he gave that person the money with the intent of having that person buy the gun for them. That's an illegal purchase. The other person also illegally purchased a gun because he took money from a kid, bought a gun with the intent to give it to that kid. They are both violating laws. Okay? I'm sorry. I don't mean to be rude, and if that's just me misreading what you're saying, I apologize, but you cannot defend this kid. I'm sorry. This is a cut and dry case. There is no defense. If I am robbing a bank and one of my hostages comes at me with a paper bag, I can't kill them in self-defense. I've already violated crimes. Or violated the law. I've already committed crimes at that point. I think if someone physically attacks you, you should be able to blast them. I agree. I agree. But, again, if I'm robbing a bank and someone comes at me in self-defense because I have a gun and I am making a situation uncomfortable for everyone, there is no self-fucking defense. There is no protection. I have already violated the law. I don't understand this. Oh, well, if you ignore the fact that this guy violated several laws, then yeah, sure, he's okay, and? If a white racist attacks a black trans, the trans should... I'm sorry, Dr. Sleven, fuck off. I'm done reading your dumb bullshit. The trans, a black trans, a black trans. Like, do you think before you speak? You just wrote out, if someone attacks a black trans, by the way, I am very impartial and very intelligent. A black trans. What? Go fuck yourself, dude. Elijah McClain was murdered by police via ketamine. I have followed that case a little bit. I have no updates for you, by the way. 8234. Thank you for the $2, though. A black trans. A black... this guy is trying to sound like they're above it all. They're an objective third party. They're just calling balls and strikes. A black trans? That's like, oh, I'm not racist. I have, I'm best friends with the blacks. My son-in-law is a black. I'm not racist. I got 2 blacks in the family. My third cousin is a black. I'm not racist, though. Fucking idiot. I'm sorry, but you lost me with that one. If you want to apologize, that's fine, but I don't give a fuck if you're half black. That does not give you the right to violate the laws of English. Law and order, Dr. Sleven. Law and order. You don't get to say things like a black trans, and then, oh, I'm half black. So it's okay when I just call people a black. It's okay when I call people a trans. What is the trans? What? Trans is an adjective. You know what else is an adjective? Spicy. Now imagine you say, oh yeah, the spicy is really spicy. The spicy? What is the spicy? What is the trans? Learn English. Your fucking sister is trans? Then shame on you. Shame on you for not knowing how to properly respect your own family. Shame on you. A black trans. If you're a black trans, if a black trans wants to come into my stream and argue as to why that language is not offensive, they can do so all they want. But of black trans is not how you refer to people. If you want to refer to them properly and with respect, you say black transgender people, not a black trans. That's not English. The spicy hurt me. What? Huh? It doesn't. There's. Come on. Black trans community. Yes. She does not say, I am a black trans in the black trans community. Adjectives. I know, this is like 3rd grade here, okay? Adjectives. What they do is they describe something. Community, in this instance, is being described by black and trans. Black trans community. Black and trans are adjectives that are describing community. When you say a black trans without any noun, then it's not describing anything, it's just poor English. Okay, she calls herself a tranny. Wow. That doesn't mean that a black trans is automatically grammatically correct. Oh, my sister calls herself a tranny, therefore a black trans is perfect grammar? I'm sorry. That's not how words work. Tranny, in this instance, is a noun. You can call yourself a tranny and still be grammatically correct. I'm a tranny. See, look, I'm doing the same thing. Am I a white trans? I am not a white trans. I am a white trans woman. I am a white transgender person. I am in the white trans community, but I am not a white trans. This is 3rd grade grammar. Okay? You don't refer to, oh yeah, my 5th cousin is a trans. A trans. What? Now, if you want to say my 5th cousin is a tranny, that's also offensive. But if you want to claim that they're self-identifying, that's fine. I'm not going to take that away from them. But at least know fucking grammar. And I'm sorry if I'm nitpicking here, but Jesus Christ. Like, it's ridiculous. You're defending a murderer, and you don't know basic grammar, and you're insulting my community, you're insulting me, and I'm sorry, I'm just going to fucking call you out for it, because you suck. And if you can learn from this, you can say, oh, my bad. I didn't know basic grammar. I never went to 3rd grade. That's fine. That's fine. If you dropped out of school at 2nd grade, totally fine. If you want to say, oh, I didn't know. Okay. That's fine. But you are defending the idea that you don't know grammar, and it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I won't play your word games because you disagree with wording. What? Grammar. It'll change again in a few years. What? What do you mean what? They're not sending their best.
Only the really, I hate to say this, but those with the lowest IQ.
Anyway, let's move on. So, Joseph Robinette Biden 2 and Kamala Harris, who I'm assuming is 1, Kamala Harris 1, and Joe Biden 2, have tweeted out these really bizarre tweets. Like, this is bizarre stuff. This is really, really weird. Like Twilight Zone stuff. And I want to say that today's episode of the Daily Dullard is actually a double. And, or you could say it's the Joe Biden campaign or transition team, whatever. So this is the Daily Dullard. So Kamala Harris says, Trump's refusal to concede means that we need to fund the transition ourselves. Will you chip in now to ensure that our country is fully prepared for the transition of power? This is a grift. This is hardcore. And then Joe Biden, here's the deal. Because President Trump refuses to concede and is delaying the transition, we have to fund it ourselves and need your help. If you're able to chip in, help fund a Biden-Harris transition. What? Bro, you've got billionaires backing your campaign. Why don't you go phone up Mike Bloomberg? Why do you need working class and poor people to give you their money? And if you scroll down, right, you'll see it. I don't like scrolling down tweets I've never seen before for fear of the pig shitting on their balls picture that would get me banned. But when you've got 50 plus millionaires donating to your campaign and billionaires donating to your campaign, why are you asking poor people for money? Fuck off. Fuck off, old man. This is ridiculous shit. This is absolutely ridiculous fucking garbage. Now, again, if I donate to the transition team, what do I get out of it? All they're going to do is put more fossil fuel lobbyists on their fucking transition team. All they're going to do is put more people who defend children in cages and who defend family separations on their transition team. Why would I fund that? I don't support that. I don't fucking give a shit. I voted for you, Joe Biden, and that's all you're going to get. And I said this from the get-go. If you donate to Joe Biden, you're a square. If you phone bank for Joe Biden, you're a square. If you canvass for Joe Biden, you're a square. If you donate to their transition team, they already got elected, motherfucker. They already won the election. What are you donating toward? What? You're donating to the if I give them $10, what am I going to get out of that? They're not letting me know. Let's click on the page. Did they let me know what I get? During these unusual times, their support is appreciated more than ever. A contribution to the Biden-Harris transition will help us lay the foundation to lead a just and equitable recovery that builds an economy for the future. Thank you. What does that mean? Lay the foundation? What? Bro, you're a millionaire, funded by billionaires. What foundation? What? Okay, I'm going to give you $10. What is in the foundation? Right? Is the foundation going to be made of cement? Or is it going to be made of quicksand? What is this foundation? All I know is you're talking about a fucking foundation. What do I get if I give you money, motherfucker? It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Fuck the Joe Biden campaign. Fuck the Joe Biden transition team. And I wanted to make that very clear. Because these guys are grifters. What the fuck are they asking for our money for? Seriously? Go ask Nancy fucking Pelosi for some chump change, motherfucker. Go ask Chuck Schumer. Do you remember how much money was wasted on Amy McGrath's Kentucky Senate campaign? Millions, tens of millions of fucking dollars were dumped in a landfill and set on fire in the Amy McGrath Senate campaign in Kentucky. We knew that at the time. It was readily apparent at the time. And yet, here they are doing this bullshit. How much money was wasted on groups like the Lincoln Project? How much money is being funneled to the DCCC? You've got enough money, Joe Biden. Go fuck yourself. That's my message to fucking Sleepy Joe. And as I said before, I've got a couple things I want to talk about, and I want to shit all over Joe Biden today. Now, again, there's a lot of people that might not know this. I don't like Joe Biden, right? A lot of right-wingers, they have this weird, bizarre reality where if you vote for someone, you have to support them entirely, or, right, like if you don't support Trump, you must clearly be a communist, and if you're a communist, clearly Joe Biden's like, all these people are ridiculous. So I need to make this abundantly clear, because we do have cringers in the stream. I don't support Joe Biden in any capacity. I do not like him in any capacity. Making a strategic move by saying that Joe Biden is slightly better than Donald Trump does not mean I support Joe Biden. Voting is a binary choice. There's two options on the ballot. There's fuck transgender healthcare, pay for it yourself on the ballot, and I have no statement on transgender healthcare on the ballot. I'm going to take a potential negative or positive over a confirmed negative. That is my calculation, okay? I need to make that abundantly clear for the dullards here. But if you think I'm going to give fucking Joe Biden money, I'm sorry. It's ridiculous. But this is a little funny Joe Biden clip. So let's get right into it, right? So Joseph Robinette Biden 2 glitched on live television. Let's watch.
Thirdly, we discussed the need to help states with Title 32 funding for the National Guard. That's a fancy way of saying governors need to be able to get funding when they need to bring their National Guard into play. And National Guards are going to have to play this. It costs a lot of money. Thirdly, they need to bring their National Guard into play.
Okay, so again, I don't want to hop on this like little train of like, oh, Joe Biden's stuttering, evil. I stutter sometimes, right? I forget what I'm saying sometimes. That is perfectly okay. Now, if I were reading from a teleprompter and I still stuttered, or if I still, lost my train of thought, I mean, mistakes happen. Here is my thing here, okay. 10 months ago, there were two options. Again, a binary choice. Bernie Sanders, Joe Biden. It was a binary choice. The same people who say that Jill Stein voters are evil, that Howie Hawkins voters are evil, those same people were like, oh, I'm going to vote for Pete Buttigieg. I'm going to vote for Elizabeth Warren. There were two options on the ballot, Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden. Bernie Sanders can speak in complete sentences. Bernie Sanders. I mean, again, if Joe Biden has a stutter problem, that's fine. I'm not here to make fun of him. But it's talking about, we're at a point here, right? Our economy is collapsing. There is a depression, right? Millions of people are going to be dying in the next year because of the results of this presidency, the Donald Trump presidency, because of this year's mishandling of public health. Okay? Millions of people are going to have pre-existing conditions that we are going to be talking about for the rest of our lives. And this is the person that is leading us through this? I'm sorry. And again, I'm not here to sound like... I'm receptive to the claims of ableism. I'm not here to attack Joe Biden for having a stutter. I'm not here to attack him for misspeaking. But seriously... I'm serious right here. We had a binary choice, Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden. Barack Obama and the entire political establishment coalesced around Joe Biden. If there was no pandemic, if there was no depression, Joe Biden would have been creamed in this election. That is a fact. The reason why, first and foremost, I was in favor of the Bernie Sanders presidency was because Bernie Sanders was the most likely to beat Donald Trump in a general election before we knew of the incoming depression and pandemic. Joe Biden, I was convinced that Joe Biden would lose. Now, it was only until, right, the coronavirus situation that I was like, okay, this is helping the Biden campaign because Biden's campaign in the primary was hide in the basement. Now, all of a sudden, hiding in the basement isn't such a far-fetched idea. But my point here is that we are at a pivotal moment in human history, especially American history. This is not a leader. This is not someone that can lead. This is a puppet. This is someone who has no original thoughts. They might be a good person, and that's fine. And I'm not here to attack them on arbitrary things such as having a stutter. But when you are incapable of giving any concise speeches, when you are incapable, right, of having a train of thought that can last like more than 30 seconds, if you are incapable of that, you should not be the designated leader through this pivotal moment in American history. I'm sorry. Now, if Joe Biden does good things, I'll compliment him on those good things. But I'm not looking out here. I don't think anything good is going to happen here, okay? And I'm also concerned with the future of the Democratic Party. Joe Biden is not going to make it for 4 years. He's not, right? Now, am I going to say Kamala Harris is evil and she's going to kill everyone and she's going to usurp power via and then there's going to be like House of Cards scenario and then they're going to like no. I think Kamala Harris, to be honest, would be a better president than Joe Biden. And I'm not even joking. In fact, I'm going to even go out there and say this. I think Kamala Harris should be president. As far as I'm concerned, Joe Biden stepping aside as soon as possible would be a net benefit for this country. If Kamala Harris became president on January 25th, 2021, that would be a net positive for this country. I don't like Kamala Harris, but she's a hell of a lot better than Joe Biden because at least she's got some spunk. At least she's got some sort of concise ability to speak. At least she could potentially lead us through this harrowing moment. Joe Biden is not that guy. Again, it was a binary selection during the primary. Bernie Sanders or Joe Biden. The choice was clear, and yet the entire political establishment decided to destroy the primary process in favor of Joe Biden because they knew he couldn't get across the finish line all by himself. Joe Biden, 5th place in Iowa. Was it 4th or 5th in Iowa? And New Hampshire was 4th or 5th too. And then Nevada, he was like, what, 2nd or something, but barely? And then the Great Coalescence. And all of a sudden, Joe Biden's the presidential individual. Joe Biden is as presidential as the fucking moldy cheese in my refrigerator that my roommates bought 2 months ago that they forgot about that stinks every time I open the door. That is how presidential Joe Biden is. And again, I'm not here to pick on the idea that he's got a stutter. I'm sympathetic to that, right? I understand that. But my point is, stutter or no stutter, the guy is not all there. He's not capable of leading us through this moment. That's my point. I got one more thing I'm going to talk about. But anyway, how's everyone doing? How's everyone doing? Think about all the times Barack Obama spoke publicly after leaving the White House. You can count them on your fingers, the amount of times Barack Obama spoke publicly about Trump, about anything. He said he was going to stay out of the primary process. Barack Obama promised to stay out of the primary process. And what did he do? At the last moment, he fucked everything up. All this so that poor people couldn't have health care. But again, it's not about the poor people. They don't give a fuck. It's about their jobs. If Bernie Sanders were the nominee, the DNC would have been completely overhauled. If Bernie Sanders were the nominee, right, Democrat operatives would have been completely overhauled. It wasn't about what's best for the people. The iron law of institutions takes place here. It was not about what's best for the country. It was about what's best for our power position in the party. That was what it's about. The iron law of institutions says people are more interested in their power within an institution than they are compared to the power of the institution itself. Democrats don't care about losing seats. As long as Nancy Pelosi remains Speaker, as long as the rich donors remain as influential as they currently are, that's all that matters. Democratic Party control can dwindle as long as the donor control within the Democratic Party stays the same. It's ridiculous and evil. Evil. Pure evil. There is no if, there is no and there's certainly no but. Pure evil. That's Barack Obama. Those are the Democrats for you. Do I think Bernie can get Labor Secretary? A234, you are really doing a good job here. It's what I'm going to talk about next. So, let's talk about that. Okay. So here's an article from Fox News that I thought was pretty fun. Bernie Sanders, enormously insulting if Biden ignores progressives in his administration. Now, I want to make this abundantly clear from the get-go. Let's analyze the 2020 election. Centrists lost. Democrats lost in the House. Now, they kept the majority, thankfully, right? God. But they lost a lot of seats. Now, who lost those districts? Democrats that were more to the right, more conservative Democrats, were more likely to lose. I believe every elected member of Congress who endorsed the Green New Deal or Medicare for All won re-election. Now, this does not count races of those who were not incumbents. So you can make the claim, incumbent advantage, all that. I'm open on that. We can have a conversation on that. Now, let's look at Georgia. How did Joe Biden win Georgia? After George Floyd was murdered on live television in front of the entire world, there was a boost in Democratic registrations in a lot of cities like Atlanta, right? In cities like Minneapolis and Minnesota, right? But I want to focus on Atlanta because that's in Georgia. How many votes did Joe Biden win by? Not that many in Georgia. Joe Biden only won Georgia because of the voter turnout of African American youths in response to the Black Lives Matter protests. That is the only reason Joe Biden won Georgia. Now, we can extrapolate and say that those might be the only reasons why Joe Biden won Wisconsin. Who knows, right? Georgia is a surefire bet. I am willing to say with 99.9% certainty that Joe Biden would not have won Georgia if it were not for the left, if it were not for Black Lives Matter, if it were not for the defund the police movement. But that's not what centrists want you to think. Centrists want you to think that the left is bad, that they're evil, and that they are more of a liability than they are of any help whatsoever. Now, if that were the case, then again, remind me why it's the conservative incumbent Democrats that lost their seats and not the left-wing incumbent Democrats that lost their seats. Tell me that. Tell me that. I would love to know your thesis. So let's read. Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, leaders of the Democratic Party's left wing, I disagree with that characterization, are at risk of being excluded from the senior ranks of President-elect Joe Biden's administration as the incoming president balances the demands of the party's progressive base against the political realities of a narrowly divided Senate. 72% of the country, not of Democrats, of the country, including Republicans, support a government-run healthcare system. 72% of the, not Democrat, of the country support a universal healthcare system. Not of a public option, of a universal government-funded healthcare system. 72% of the country. This is not a fringe group that supports Medicare for all, right? 60+% of the country supports the Green New Deal. This is not a fringe ideology. This is a mainstream ideology. This is an ideology. If you were to go out on the street and ask them, hey, do you prefer dying because you can't get, a doctor's appointment because you don't have money and you have to pay for your foods, for your children's food? Or would you rather go to the doctor every 3 months and make sure that you don't develop cancer because you get preemptive screenings? I don't know. Most people would say, I'd rather get those preemptive screenings. Right? So this is not a fringe. This is not, there's like a couple radicals out there that think this. This is the mainstream, not of the Democratic Party, of the entire country. This is not the mainstream of the Democratic voters. This is the mainstream of the entire country. Now, if you want to extrapolate, this is the mainstream of the entire world. Universal health care is a staple in almost every other country on the planet. Why? Because it's a common sense, no shit, policy position. Yet, these guys are convinced that it's fringe. It seems to me pretty clear that progressive views need to be expressed within a Biden administration, Sanders told the Associated Press. It would be, for example, enormously insulting if Biden put together a team of rivals. And there's some discussion that that's what he intends to do, which might include Republicans and conservative Democrats, but which ignore the progressive community. I think that would be very, very unfortunate, is what Bernie Sanders has to say. Biden told reporters Thursday that he has finalized his choice for Treasury Secretary and said the pick would be someone who will be accepted by all elements of the Democratic Party, moderates and progressives. We'll see about that. He sidestepped a specific question about Sanders joining the cabinet as he walked off stage. Waleed Shahed, a spokesman for the Sanders-aligned Justice Democrats, said his group and others recognize that not every member of the administration is going to be progressive. That's not who Joe Biden is. He said progressives simply want adequate representation in the cabinet. If 72% of the country wants a universal health care system, I believe that 72% of the presidential administration should also want a universal health care system. That is my ideology. That is what I think. Now, that's not going to happen, but that's what I think should happen. We are advocating for them to be included, but we also have backup choices, he said, of Warren and Sanders. Now, again, I don't necessarily think Sanders should join the administration. I'm skeptical of whether or not he's more useful in the Senate or the Biden cabinet, right? I'm skeptical of that, right? However, whoever that should be in Secretary of Labor should be someone who is at least Sanders aligned, in my opinion. Sanders noted that Vermont Governor Phil Scott has promised to fill a prospective vacancy with an independent who caucuses with Democrats, just as Sanders does. Governor Scott is a moderate Republican. He is not a right-wing Republican, Sanders said. Now, I am very skeptical of whether or not he's telling the truth, and I'm very skeptical of the notion of what a moderate Republican is. Personally, I don't believe in those, but still, Phil Scott has on record said this. So, Sanders said he understands that this is a progressive state, and the wise and appropriate thing to do would be, as an interim appointment before the special election took place, would be to appoint somebody whose views were consistent with mine. Now, this is going to really trigger me here, so watch out. Choosing Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders, who represent the far left, and in Bernie's case, an openly socialist view of the world, is not the leadership that the American people just voted for. Now, again, why did Biden win Georgia? 72% of the country supports universal health care. Not of the Democrats. Again, I need this to be understood. Not 72% of Democrats, 72% of the country. That means Republicans support a universal health care system. Republicans! They support universal health care too! Right? Think about that. It's not the leadership the American people voted for, said Jennifer Horn, a co-founder of the anti-Trump Lincoln Project that spent millions to support President Biden's presidential bid. I think Joe Biden understands that. Now, you have all these fucking liberal douchebags going out there saying, the Lincoln Project is great, they're anti-Trump, right? The Lincoln Project was not anti-Trump. They loved Trump. They didn't care if Trump won. The Lincoln Project, what they did was they saw the writing on the wall. They knew that the Democratic Party is going to be moving further left, and they want to get a piece of the cake. They want to get a slice of that pie. If we can make a splash a couple years before the 2020 election, we might have a say in who's in a Biden cabinet. We might have a say in who's in the transition team. That's what the Lincoln Project was about, is getting their disgusting, offensive, and murderous paws inside of the Biden transition team and administration. That's what it was about. Bernie Sanders represents the far left. Bernie Sanders has garnered the most fundraising of any presidential candidate in history. The far left. 72% of the country supports universal health care. The far left. This is not a fringe group of like 10 people, right, in a hippie fucking like subgroup, right, that have this like club that they do like bonfires and tree hugging sessions over in like California. This is a mainstream proposal that every single state's population agrees with. 72% of the fucking country supports universal health care. You have states like Arizona legalizing marijuana. You have states like Florida supporting a $15 minimum wage, yet voting for Donald Trump. This is not a fringe far left group. This is the mainstream, not just of America, but of the entire planet Earth. This is a mainstream talking point. Yet these far right radicals in the Lincoln Project, who actually do represent a fringe minority of less than 1% of people, there are wealthy, business, media, elite class cringers who want to try to influence presidential politics to get money in their media firms or lobbyist adventures. Those are a fringe group of far right or radical centrists. Okay? That is reality. 72% of American people support a universal government-funded healthcare system. If it were fringe, explain those numbers. But this is the Biden cabinet. This is the Biden transition team. We're in for a whammy. Anyway, that's my show for today. Damn, dude. George Washington in the chat, I haven't read a single one of your messages, but I do want to say the resilience here, the idea that you are 29 and have 2 children, and you're not spending your time teaching your children, raising your children, or feeding your children. It's almost lunchtime, dude. It's almost lunchtime, George. And yet, you're here in my stream promoting acts of terrorism. Really makes you think. But George Washington in the chat room, and I want this to be understood. George Washington in the chat room, who just spent an hour defending a 17-year-old terrorist. George Washington in the chat room is raising his children to be like Kyle Rittenhouse. George Washington in the chat room has 2 children, they said, allegedly has 2 children. They are training their 2 children to be right-wing terrorists. That's what happened with Kyle Rittenhouse. Their parents trained him to be a right-wing terrorist. George Washington is the same thing in the chat room. I'm not talking about the founding father, or that too, but that's a whole different story. And it's on it, again, this is the problem. This all goes back to the Daughters of the Confederacy, those who erected the Confederate monuments and statues in the 1880s all the way up to the 1920s, birthing the, I believe, second wave of the KKK. The Daughters of the Confederacy, they called themselves. Why did they call them the Daughters of the Confederacy? Because these were women, a group of women, that were raised by racist slave owners. When your parent is a racist slave owner, there is a high likelihood, probably an 80% chance, that you yourself are going to be a racist wannabe slave owner. They called themselves the Daughters of the Confederacy. Now, the Daughters of the Confederacy, they were not infertile. They were not like random people that just showed up and then erected statues for 40 years and then disappeared. They had children, right? And then their children had children. And those children taught those children, yeah, the Confederacy was a lost cause. Oh yeah, Richard Nixon, he's a great guy. Ronald Reagan, great guy. They're wonderful people. Strong men. And then they had children. And then they had children. And then George Washington in the chat room defending terrorism, saying it's okay to execute someone before a trial. That's fine. And then now a new generation of terrorists. Kyle Rittenhouse, their generation of terrorism. It's all stemming back from the Daughters of the Confederacy, which is one of the founding groups. And again, I highlight them historically because of their name and the idea that that name promotes. They are the direct descendants, the offspring, those that were raised under the roofs of those who fought to defend their right to have slaves. That is why it's such an important group. Now again, the whole fake history of the Civil War, those are, whoops. The whole fake history was completely manufactured by them. My daddy fought and died to protect his right to own slaves. It's the least of the things that I could do to make sure that future generations think that that guy was a hero because he was my daddy and I love my daddy. And then they loved their daddy's daddy and their daddy's daddy's daddy and their daddy's 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 daddy, all the way up until Kyle Rittenhouse murders 2 people at a protest. Generational trauma is a hell of a thing. But, again, how do you deprogram 75 million Trump voters? No idea. I wish I knew. I wish I fucking knew. No idea. But what we can do, something we can maybe do, is mitigate the impact of what these 75 million Trump voters pass on to their children. That maybe we can have some sort of semblance of say in. So George Washington, your kids are in school? Well, one of my life's work is I want public funded free higher education. I hope your children eventually learn how evil your ideas were. Now, there are a lot of people out there that have bad relationships with their parents because their parents are crazy, right? I hope to God that your kids are in that group because you are one crazy motherfucker. But, I hope that there can be some intervention in the school system. Because if not, again, George Washington said like a couple days ago, my kid's 10 years old. So 7 years from now, we might have another Kyle Rittenhouse on our hands. And this is how it happens. This is how it happens. When you tell people from a young age, oh, you see those black people over there? They're less than you. When they riot and loot, they need to be shot on sight. When the looting starts, the shooting starts. Right? Law and order for the black people. But, you know, if you want to get a gun illegally, little Jimmy, I'll help you illegally purchase a gun. That's fine. Now, I just said that black people should be killed on sight for violating the law. That's, you know, I just taught you that. But you're white, little Jimmy. You're white. So you can, you know, we can violate some laws, get you a gun, and maybe you can go on your own killing spree when you all grown up. That's what this shit is. But anyway, thank you for watching, y'all. Hello, Nimbus, by the way. If I missed anyone else, I'm so sorry. Today's a little bit of a longer show, but I had a lot to talk about. Yeah, so. But again, of course, I have a black friend. So whenever I spend years of my life, hours of my life, every single day, trashing black people as rioters and looters, I got a black friend. So it's okay. Yo, my sister calls herself a tranny. That's why it's okay when I go into YouTube chat rooms and attack transgender people. Hey, my sister calls herself a tranny. My black friend. You know, like, hell yeah, right? No. Hell no. Hell no. Anyway, thank you for watching. Y'all have a good one.
Only the really, I hate to say this, but those with the lowest IQ, 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 only the really, but those with the lowest IQ, only the really, I hate to say this, but those with the lowest IQ. And he's like this, and we were, I need water, help me, I need water, 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 help me, I need water. They had a very bad original concept. It was carried out poorly, and the cover-up was one of the worst in the history of cover-ups. Very simple. Bad deal. Should have never been thought of. Somebody really messed up, and they had the worst cover-up ever. And where it should have stopped is at the deal standpoint, when they thought about it, because whoever thought of that idea, I think is in big trouble. And where it should have stopped is at the deal standpoint, when they thought about it.
Antifa exists. Antifa exists. Retweet. That was an opinion of somebody.
And by the way, I don't think that's some grand conspiracy. I think this is sort of what power is. I mean this at a sort of high level.
I'm about to be 34 and I have no family. Because my dad had 2 kids, though it's definitely not me. I think it's everybody else.
Let me just tell you, I get along with everybody, which is my obligation to my company, to myself, etc. Obviously, the war in Iraq is a big, fat mistake, all right?
Only the really, but those with the lowest IQ.
The battle of righteousness versus Satan. Yes, Satan. Because these leftists are evil.
You're dying. That's true. And it is what it is. Not good. Believe me, not good.
You know, the truth of the matter is that when you look at some of my policies, in a lot of ways, Richard Nixon was more liberal than I was. You know, in a lot of ways, Richard Nixon was more liberal than I was. In a lot of ways, Richard Nixon was more liberal than I was. In a lot of ways, Richard Nixon was more liberal than I was.
All of a sudden, we can't talk about Neanderthal DNA anymore.
And by the way, I don't think that's some grand conspiracy. I think this is sort of what power is. I mean this at a sort of high level.
Isn't it wonderful to allow protesting? As far as my relationships with all people, I think I have great relationships with all people. I am the least racist person in this room. And where it should have stopped is at the deal standpoint, when they thought about it. No good, really bad for you. No good, really bad for you. No good, really bad for you. Well, you have to understand, the first time I ever heard of Black Lives Matter, they were chanting, pigs in a blanket, talking about police. Pigs, talking about our police. Pigs in a blanket, fry them like bacon.
Well, it was an amazing phone call I made. 40 Wall Street actually was the second tallest building in downtown Manhattan. And it was actually, before the World Trade Center, was the tallest. And then when they built the World Trade Center, it became known as the second tallest, and now it's the tallest. And I just spoke to my people.